Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment after the silence, after the distance, after the disappearances and the mixed signals. A moment where the one who pushed you away, the one who ran, avoided, shut down, and acted like they didn't care, breaks. And when they break, they don't just miss you. They miss you like crazy. But let's get something straight. They're not just missing your smile, your voice, or your presence. They're missing the peace you brought, the love they didn't know how to hold, the safety they couldn't find in themselves. They're missing what they couldn't understand when it was right in front of them. See, avoidance isn't about you, it's about them. Their fear, their wounds, their inability to sit in something real. You showed up with a full heart, and they pulled away with empty hands. They ghosted growth. They ran from depth, and they thought silence would save them. But now, that silence is screaming. Now your absence echoes. Your energy is missing from their space. Your love is something they can't find anywhere else. Because let me tell you something. When you love from a pure place, when you give with honesty, when you show up with realness, you leave a mark. They may not say it out loud, they may not send the text or make the call, but deep down, they feel it, they remember. And that memory, it doesn't go away, it haunts. But here's the powerful truth. Just because they miss you doesn't mean they're ready for you. Just because they feel the loss doesn't mean they've earned the right to return. You were not meant to be somebody's lesson and home at the same time. Let them learn. Let them grow. Let them sit in the emptiness they created. Because this message right here, it's not about waiting for their return. It's about rising in their absence. It's about recognizing that your love was never the problem. Your standards were never too high. Your effort was never too much. They just weren't ready to receive what they were asking God for. So when the avoidant breaks and misses you like crazy, don't lose yourself in their late realization. Don't reopen a door you had to heal from just because they finally knocked. You are not a second chance. You are a once in a lifetime. Stay firm. Stay growing. Let your silence teach what your words never could. Because now they know, now they feel it, and now they miss you like crazy. But you've already begun your comeback. And this time, you're not looking back. They ran from connection, not from you. That truth might be hard to swallow, but it's powerful once you really understand it. They didn't leave because you were too much. They didn't pull away because you were unlovable. They ran because they were afraid. Afraid of being seen, of being known, of being touched in a place too deep for them to handle. You showed up with honesty, you showed up ready. And instead of holding on, they let go. Not because you were wrong, but because they weren't ready for what was right. Avoidant people aren't heartless. They're scared. Scared of depending on someone. Scared of intimacy. Scared that if they open the door, they'll get hurt the way they did in the past. So instead of growing, they retreat. Instead of leaning in, they create space. They've been conditioned to believe that love equals danger, that closeness equals vulnerability, and that vulnerability equals pain. So they build walls. And when you come along with love that's real, love that's warm, love that's safe, they panic. You didn't fail them. You triggered their defense system. You didn't overwhelm them. You awakened something in them they had spent years trying to bury. That's why they ran. Not because you weren't enough, but because you were too real. You touched something they hadn't dared to feel in a long time. And instead of thanking you for it, they vanished. They acted cold. They became distant. Not because they didn't feel, but because they felt too much. And when they ran, it hurt. It felt personal. You started to question everything. Was I too needy? Did I say too much? Should I have pulled back? No. The truth is, you were offering something most people begged for. Connection, consistency, commitment. But you were offering it to someone who hadn't yet healed the parts of themselves that fear connection the most. So when they saw you, they didn't see love. They saw pressure. Not because you gave pressure, but because they feel pressure when love enters the room. That's what happens when someone hasn't healed. They'll say things like, I need space, or I'm not good at relationships, or I just need to figure myself out, and maybe some of that is true. But more often than not, it's their fear talking. It's their wounds taking the mic and calling the shots. And instead of facing those wounds, they choose what's easy: distance. But here's what happens later. Once the chaos settles, once the silence gets too loud, Once they realize you're really gone, that's when it all hits. That's when they stop pretending they don't care. That's when they start feeling everything they tried to suppress. Because what they ran from was never you. It was their own unhealed heart. And when you're no longer around to distract them from themselves, the truth sets in. They miss you, not just the person, but the presence, the peace, the consistency, the way you made them feel safe, even when they couldn't explain why they were so guarded. They missed the version of themselves they were becoming around you, but didn't have the courage to fully become. That's the tragedy of avoidance. They often realize too late what they couldn't recognize when it mattered. But by the time they break, by the time they miss you like crazy, you've already grown. You've already started healing. You've already learned that their rejection wasn't your fault, that their absence wasn't a reflection of your worth, and maybe, just maybe, you've learned to stop chasing after people who don't know how to stay. Because in the end, it wasn't that you weren't enough. It was that you were too much truth for someone still hiding from their own. And when you accept that, you no longer see their exit as a loss. You see it as proof that you loved fully, deeply, and without apology. And then they'll carry that with them long after you're gone. Time doesn't heal what guilt keeps alive. That's the truth most people avoid, because it's easier to believe that time is the great healer, that all you need is space and distance, and everything will eventually make sense. But some people don't heal with time. They hurt deeper with time, because every day that goes by is another reminder of what they ran from. And when the guilt is real, when the loss is finally understood, time doesn't bring peace, it brings pressure. See, the avoidant walks away believing they're doing the right thing. They convince themselves that detachment is safer than discomfort, that silence is better than vulnerability, that shutting you out will somehow protect them from pain. But what they don't realize in the moment is that the pain doesn't vanish, it just hides. And time doesn't erase it, time exposes it. At first, they feel relief, that false sense of freedom. No more tough conversations, no more vulnerability, no more feeling exposed. But as the days pass, something shifts. The distractions stop working. The silence becomes loud. They scroll past things that remind them of you. They hear your laugh in a memory. They feel your energy in a place you used to stand. And slowly, that sense of "I'm better off" becomes, "What did I just do?" The thing about avoidant people is that they're not immune to emotions. They're just delayed in processing them. They push them down so hard for so long that by the time they feel them, it's like a tidal wave crashing in all at once. And in that wave is guilt, not just for leaving, but for how they left, for not saying enough, for not showing up, for making you feel like you were the problem when you were the gift. Time reveals that. Time reminds them. Time doesn't let them forget. Because while they were gone, you were growing. You were hurting. Yes, but you were also healing. They expected you to be waiting. They thought you'd still be checking for them. But when they realized you moved on, that's when the guilt caught fire. And it burns different when it's too late. They start playing the what-if game in their mind. What if I had stayed? What if I had just communicated better? What if I hadn't let fear win? But time doesn't rewind. It doesn't give second chances on command. It just keeps ticking. And the deeper they think, the heavier the regret becomes. This is what guilt does. It replays your voice in their head when no one else is around. It plays back the way you looked at them when you still believed they could love you right. It plays back the text they left unanswered, the call they ignored, the door they closed while you were still standing there with open arms. And all of a sudden, that "I'm not ready" turns into "I wasn't brave enough." They may not say it out loud. They might not message you. Pride still has a grip on them. But trust this, they feel it. Every single day. Because time has a way of shining light on everything we tried to bury. And when that light hits regret, it blinds. You, on the other hand, have a choice. You can romanticize their pain, or you can recognize your power. You can keep wondering if they'll come back, or you can keep walking forward, knowing you were never the one who needed fixing. You were the one who stayed solid while they were falling apart. And while they were running from what you offered, you were becoming everything they'll never be able to hold again. Let time do what it does. Let guilt do what it must. That's not your burden anymore. You gave love. You gave presence. You gave peace. And one day, they'll wake up and realize that what they thought they needed space from was the very thing they'll spend a lifetime trying to feel again. But by then, you'll be gone. You were the safe place they didn't know they needed. That's the part that hits them later. Not in the moment. Not while they were pulling away, acting distant, pretending they didn't feel anything. But later, when it's quiet, when it's dark, when nobody's around to distract them from themselves, that's when the truth shows up. That's when it hits them like a wave they didn't see coming. You weren't just a person. You weren't just a chapter. You were their sanctuary. And they didn't even realize it until they stepped out into a world that didn't love them like you did. Avoidant people crave safety just like everyone else. They want connection. They want warmth. They want to be seen. But they're scared of it. They've learned to associate closeness with risk, vulnerability with pain. So when something real comes along, something soft, consistent, deep, they don't know what to do with it. It terrifies them. Not because it's wrong, but because it's right. So right that it exposes all the ways they've kept their guard up for years. You didn't just offer affection. You offered stability. You didn't just say, I'm here. You proved it over and over again. And that kind of presence, that kind of loyalty, it's rare, it's sacred, and it's scary to someone who's never had it before. They didn't know how to receive it. They didn't believe they deserved it. So instead of leaning in, they pulled away. Not because you weren't enough, but because you were everything. When you became their safe place, you became something they couldn't control. And control is the only thing that ever made them feel secure. But you were unpredictable in the best way. You were vulnerable, honest, real. And to someone used to hiding behind walls, that's overwhelming. They didn't know what to do with your love, so they ran from it, only to miss it once it was gone. Because the world outside of you isn't warm like that. It isn't patient like you were. It isn't consistent. It doesn't check in. It doesn't see past the mask. Out there, they're just another face, just another interaction, just another distraction. And they start to notice. No one asks how they really are. No one remembers the little things. No one reaches them on that deeper level where you lived. That's when the realization cuts through. You were the safe place they spent their whole life pretending they didn't need. And it's not just about the comfort. It's about the way you challenged them to grow, even when they resisted. The way you held space for them while they tried to figure themselves out. The way you stayed solid while they stayed scared. You didn't just love them, you saw them. And that kind of sight, it's rare. It's unforgettable. It's something they'll spend a long time searching for again and never quite find. Because safe places aren't built overnight. They're earned through presence, patience, and persistence. And once they break it, once they abandon it, they can't just walk back in like nothing happened. They don't get to ghost growth and then show up when it's convenient. They don't get to run from healing and expect you to stay wounded. Let them remember. Let them miss you. Let them feel what you carried without complaint. That's not your burden anymore. You were never too much. You were the foundation they weren't ready to stand on. And now, every moment of silence reminds them of the noise they made when they should have been listening. Every lonely night reminds them of the home they had in your heart. They'll feel it when life gets cold, when fake smiles fade, when shallow conversations start to feel empty. That's when it'll come rushing back. You, the calm in their chaos, the light in their darkness, the place where they finally felt safe and didn't have the courage to stay. But you became the safe place for yourself. And that's the kind of peace no one can take from you again. Your growth is the closure. You see, closure doesn't always come in a neatly wrapped conversation. It doesn't always arrive with apologies, explanations, or the truth you thought you deserved. Sometimes, closure doesn't come from them at all. Sometimes it comes from you. From the moment you finally stop begging for clarity and start building your own peace. From the moment you choose healing over answers. From the moment you accept that their silence, their absence, their decision to let you go was all the closure you truly needed. People will walk out of your life and expect you to stand still. They'll assume that because they left, you'll break, that you'll sit around and wait for them to figure it out. But what they don't count on is your resilience. What they don't expect is your evolution. While they're busy second-guessing their choices, you're busy leveling up. You're investing in yourself. You're rising. You're becoming everything they couldn't handle. And that's the part that stings, the part they never saw coming. That you didn't fall apart when they disappeared. That you didn't spiral when they stopped reaching out. That instead of breaking down, you broke through the heartbreak, through the confusion, through the weight of being abandoned by someone you once gave your heart to. They didn't expect you to grow. They expected you to wait, to replay the past, to wonder what went wrong. But you realized something important. You were not put on this earth to be someone's afterthought. You weren't made to be a maybe. You weren't designed to be someone's backup plan while they heal. You're not healing so you can go back. You're healing so you can move forward, so you can love deeper, so you can rise higher, so you can meet the version of you that doesn't chase clarity but becomes it. Because your strength now is undeniable. Your glow is louder than their guilt. Your peace is louder than their silence. And that's where real closure lives in the life you've built after that. They will feel it. Quietly, slowly, and deeply. They'll feel it when they check your social media and see the light in your eyes again. When they hear about how you're doing better, smiling more, elevating without them. They'll feel it when they realize the version of you they ran from is never coming back. Not because you hate them, not because you wish them harm, but because you finally found someone worth staying for yourself. Growth becomes the mirror they didn't want to face. Because your evolution reflects everything they were too scared to become. Everything they could have had, but weren't ready to receive. And that's not your burden to carry. You gave them love. You gave them loyalty. You gave them access. What they did with that is on them. So stop waiting for the apology. Stop waiting for the closure conversation. Stop hoping they'll come back with the answers that make it all make sense. Because here's the truth. They probably won't. And even if they do, it still won't heal you the way your own growth will. Your discipline, your decision to stop replaying what hurt you, your choice to become better instead of bitter. Every time you choose yourself, you create closure. Every time you love yourself deeper, speak your truth, protect your peace, you bury the need for their validation. You become your own answer. You become your own peace. You become the reason you never needed to go back. So keep rising, keep healing, keep building. Let them watch from a distance. Let your growth say everything their words never did. Because when you turn your pain into progress, when you use the rejection as redirection, when you become a version of yourself they'll never get access to again. That's not just closure. That's victory. Let them miss you, but don't shrink back. When someone who ran from you finally feels the weight of your absence, it's not your job to rush back and catch them when they fall. It's not your responsibility to reopen doors that were closed for your healing. Just because they finally miss you doesn't mean they're ready for you. Just because they've realized what they lost doesn't mean they've earned the right to return. Missing you is not the same as changing for you. It's not the same as showing up with consistency. It's not the same as doing the work it takes to stand beside you with honesty and maturity. People miss things all the time. Peace, comfort, energy, but not everyone knows how to honor those things once they return. Sometimes they just miss the access, not the commitment. You don't become less just because someone finally saw your worth after they walked away. You don't lower your standards for someone who only started looking up when you stopped looking back. That's not love. That's convenience. And you were never made to be someone's convenience. You are not a pit stop on someone else's journey to self-discovery. You are a destination, a decision, a home, not a halfway house. So let them miss you. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them learn what it feels like to be on the other side of the energy they took for granted. You don't owe them a response. You don't owe them the same access to your heart that they misused before. Just because they feel something now doesn't mean they're capable of protecting what they once neglected. There's a reason you had to heal, a reason you had to let go, a reason you cried yourself back together after they left you in pieces. Don't forget that. Don't betray the version of you that fought to rebuild their peace just because someone finally woke up too late. Respect the pain you had to process. Respect the healing you had to earn. Respect the silence that taught you your worth. Because here's the truth. They don't miss the old you. They miss the version of you who tolerated their chaos. The version who forgave without change. The version who made excuses for their distance, their coldness, their inconsistency. That version of you is gone now, and they don't get to meet the evolved you until they show up with evolved behavior. You didn't level up to go back. You didn't climb out of that pit just to climb back into uncertainty. Let them watch you from afar. Let them scroll past your glow. Let them see the light they can no longer touch. That's not petty. That's power. That's discipline. That's protecting what you built when they were busy running. When you finally understand your value, you don't settle for someone's regret. You wait for someone's readiness. And if they're not ready, let them stay where they are. You didn't come this far to bend backward for someone who only looks for you when they feel alone. Let them miss you. Let that longing echo in the silence they chose. Let your absence teach them what your presence tried to show them all along. And you, don't shrink. Don't doubt your worth. Don't open the door for a heart that only knocks when it's convenient. You were not meant to be half loved. You were not built to be almost appreciated. You were not the what if in someone's life. You were the never again. They'll remember every time they meet someone who doesn't measure up. Let them miss you like crazy. Let them wish. Let them wonder. What you? You keep walking. You keep growing. You keep becoming. Because the real flex isn't being missed. It's being unreachable. When the avoidant finally breaks and misses you like crazy, don't confuse their craving with commitment. Missing you is not the same as deserving you. Regret is loud, but growth is silent. And unless they've done the work, their return isn't healing. It's a repeat of the same cycle that nearly broke you. You were not the problem. You were the mirror. You reflected back to them everything they weren't ready to face in themselves. You offered depth, safety, consistency, and they ran, not because it wasn't real, but because it was too real. But now they feel the void. Now they miss the presence that held them without condition. Now they understand, too late, that you were the peace they prayed for and pushed away. But don't shrink back. Don't water yourself down to be digestible for someone who choked on your fullness. Let them miss you. Let that lesson burn. Let your absence speak where your words never could. Because you've grown now. You've healed. You've evolved. And you don't open your door for ghosts. You open it for warriors who know how to stay. So if they come back, let your silence speak. Let your standards speak. Let your elevation speak. Because the strongest message you'll ever send isn't "I miss you too." It's "I moved on and I meant it." Let them miss you. But never go back to being someone you had to survive.